New season for UNC football and Bill Belichick, but some similar issues that we saw last year, Murph. Breaking today on WRAL and WRAL.com. We've got a professor coming forward with months of documentation about football players parking in handicap spots, speeding on campus, and we've uncovered recent driving records off the, on the highways, on the roads of some more reckless driving charges for UNC football players. We're going to get into all of it, how we first learned about this, some of the most explosive details, and tease ahead to our WRAL coverage online as well. And Murph, you wrote the article. I first got the interview and some of the emails. What's your headline? What's your takeaway?
My big takeaway is the back and forth between this professor and others that work in his building and park in the Bell Tower parking lot and university administrators, right? This has been a problem since November, at least according to these emails, back and forth. And Bubba Cunningham, the current athletic director, writes this guy back and basically acknowledges the problem and says he's tried to do stuff about it and has been unable to get these players to change their behavior. Again, what we're talking about is not murders and rapes and things like that, and I don't want to make light of that stuff.
Sure.
But simple things like don't park in a handicapped parking spot. Don't zoom out of a parking deck where other people are trying to get their cars and get out of work for the day. So it's very simple things, but I think it points to a larger issue that no one from the football program, from the athletic department, has been able to get some of these guys to change their behavior. And I want to make one other point clear. It does seem like we're dealing with a small subset of the team. That This is not 105 guys all doing the same thing. That it does appear that they're seeing the same cars parking in these spots, exhibiting this behavior.
So let's go back to the beginning. Last November, I get a tip that players are being pulled over at a disproportionate rate, and start looking into those names, and we find that Thaddeus Dixon and Kamari House are just repeat offenders to the point where almost it seems like every time they're out driving, they're getting pulled over for speeding at a minimum, reckless at the maximum, as well as a variety of some other different charges, to the point where the police in the police reports kind of started making jokes in the actual police reports. That's how frequently these guys were getting pulled over. Well, now here, it's a new season, it's a new team. Both those players are gone. And we have, again, some of the most high-profile players in Belichick's program getting hit with reckless driving charges. Jelani Thurman from Ohio State, UNC's highest-rated transfer. He's got a reckless charge. He's been pulled over 4 times since January. He's been cited twice for reckless driving. Damon June, UNC's leading rusher from last season, player to be really excited about this season. He's been cited 3 times since February, including for reckless driving, allegedly going 101 miles per hour in a 65 on March 19th. And he drives this lime green Charger, which is in the photos that we've been documenting, parking in handicap spots on campus.
Yeah, and I think it gets to the kind of some of the culture questions that came up last year in your explosive reporting about what's happening inside this program. And obviously we ran a search of some of the transfers and some of the key players. A player like Damon June, who UNC announced that he had re-signed with the program. We did not look at the entire roster, but we looked at these transfers and these key players just since January to see what's going on, and found some of these speeding violations. And, over 100 miles an hour. There were others that 50 and a 35. We didn't report those names. Mm-hmm. That is garden variety speeding. But when you're going over 100, you're getting cited for reckless driving. That's a little bit more newsworthy. And then you add that onto the parking issue. And one of the things that this professor talked about is who can rein in these players? Who can get through to them, to put it in a more polite way, who can get through to them and say, hey, guys, you're a high-profile player at a public school. You've probably got some NIL money or maybe some rev share money in your pocket. You've got a nice car. Just chill. You're the target, or the spotlight is on you. This is how you have to handle things. And it doesn't look like at this point, whether it's Bill Belichick and the coaching staff or others around the program, have been able to get that message through.
And look, Mark Pfeiffer is the professor that came forward, and he had been emailing back and forth with people like Bubba Cunningham, the chancellor himself, people in the parking departments for months here, and he started tagging me on these emails. And we were actually at the ACC tournament for basketball when this first came to my attention, and I mentioned it to you, Chris Lee, when we were back working. And I reached back out to Mark and I was like, do you want to come forward? Do you want to be an anonymous source? Do you want to go on the record? And he's like, well, let's see if they're able to fix the problem. And we mentioned Cunningham acknowledged it. The people in parking acknowledged it. They have not denied that these cars are belonging to football players. We haven't confirmed that every single car that has been in a handicap spot is. We have confirmed that several are. And for a while, the behavior did seem to dissipate, according to Pfeiffer, but then it raged back up here near the end of spring football, and that's when he just had enough. He did a 30-minute interview with me and recounted some of the things that he's encountered on campus. And it really started with him noticing during the Belichick program a flood of new cars in the bell tower lot. And the dead giveaway for what might be a football player is how they park. There's a rule that you have to park facing in so that parking attendants can scan your license plate to make sure you're not in violation. All of these cars parked backing in, many without license plates on the front where they can read it. And most and all of the cars, giant SUVs, pickup trucks, and souped up muscle cars, and a heck of a lot of Dodge Chargers.
Yeah, I mean, again, you stand out. You stand out when you're a football player on any campus, but, on North Carolina's campus, you stand out, especially this parking deck is so close to Kenan Stadium, so close to the Geome Sciences building where the professor works and others work as well. And so, at the end of the day, it becomes, almost a respect thing. Like, how much respect do you have for the people around you? Are you willing to follow simple rules, like how you should park in a parking space, where you should park on campus? I mean, I think at the end, that's a lot of what this is about, is respect for the people around you and respect for what's happening on campus.
Oh, look, the 33rd NFL team, this isn't the NFL where you have a facility where you have designated parking spots. You go to the Carolina Hurricanes games, you see all the Range Rovers and Porsches and Maseratis right in front of the stadium inside a gated lot because that's where they're allowed to park. In the NBA, they're literally parking inside the stadium. For basketball, UNC players have their own special lot. But when you have 100 players on the football team, right, it's a little bit different in college. And I mean, we've all, I park on campus. It's a nightmare. I get it. But like you said, it goes back to the respect issue you talked about, just accountability in general within this program. I mean, dating back to the initial report about the culture programs within UNC's program under Belichick that we've all worked on, it was a lot of little things becoming big. Players not being held accountable to being on time. Workouts, all these classes, all these things top to bottom. And this spring, we heard that Belichick was personally checking up on people in class. He acknowledged the driving thing last year, that they were working on it. And we got a statement from UC Athletics in response to this story that says, quote, "We work with our athletic programs to ensure that players are educated about driving safety. We will continue to work with all of our teams on safe driving education." There you have it. They didn't give us much response, but they also didn't deny that this is occurring. I want to set you up for a couple anecdotes before we get out of here. Jelani Thurman, you were going through the police reports, and there was I don't want to say funny, but an interesting anecdote from one of those. Yeah,
Jelani Thurman, who was on Ohio State's national championship team, is probably is used to football at the highest level, right? And having that spotlight on him. He's been pulled over 4 times since January, since arriving on campus. The last time was in late April, and it noted in the police report is he was driving his car back to Georgia, which is where he's from, to sell it because it's attracting too much attention. The car is attracting too much attention. And I just thought that was a really interesting thing, given what we saw in some of the police reports last year as well.
Talk about drawing too much attention. Probably the most inflammatory story, a pun intended, from Pfeiffer's accounts was a run-in he had with a football player who had modified his sports car to have flames shoot out of the exhaust when he revs the engine. And Pfeiffer stopped this player in the parking deck, and the player, this is basically straight from a quote, went 5 feet past me, stopped, revved the engine so flames shot out the back, went around the corner, opened the window, and cursed me out. So you want to talk about lack of respect? I mean, that's, ground zero right there. So season hasn't even started yet, and we're already having issues with UNC football. I think we'd all love to see, UNC football be what it was promised to be under Bill Belichick. It has been anything but so far on the field. And again, issues like this off it give a glimpse into maybe why. And, hopefully things can turn around here. There's a a few months to go here before the spring, or before the fall.
Some context, North Carolina, doing my research in 2007 to 2010, had 11 players rack up over $13,000 in parking tickets on campus. So not necessarily a new phenomenon. And we've seen at other programs around the country, including Georgia, which has had serious problems with players speeding, traffic violations, things like that. So not an issue totally specific to this North Carolina team, but still an issue that you don't want to see. You don't want to deal with if you're a football coach, if you're in an athletic department. You certainly don't want to be dealing with these types of issues cropping up off the field. You'd rather put that focus and attention on the field.
Right, and Pfeiffer's talking about cars driving 40 miles per hour out of the deck down a narrow road outside the Genome building. I mean, you can laugh about this story if you want. You could say it's nothing. It's not going to be nothing if somebody dies, whether on campus or on the roads. We've seen that across college football. It seems to be happening every draft. There's a player that gets drafted that's been involved in something like this. It's scary. It's dangerous. And at a minimum, these kind of things come out about you as a player. It's going to hurt your draft stock. So Belichick's trying to, you notice Thaddeus Dixon did not get drafted. Were the off-field issues related to that? Can't say for sure. I imagine it had some sort of effect. So none of this is good. You'd like to see behavior curbed. You'd like to see football team winning. So far, we have neither. We're going to continue to report on this. This is Brian Murphy, Pat Welter, and we got to give a shout out to Randall Kerr, investigative producer who did a lot of the legwork, a lot of the driving record searches, and helped us out writing this as well and producing it. So it's going to be up on WRAL.com. We're going to stay on the story and see what else we can find.
Yeah, good work to you as well.
Thanks.